Well, we finally have a beautiful spring afternoon here in Chicago after what was a long winter. Not the hardest winter in the world, but one that seemed to creep on well into April. But how I'm out here actually in my shirt sleeves, as you can see, enjoying this beautiful weather. And I had a beautiful reminder as I looked out the window during meditation yesterday that, yes, spring is definitely here. The buds are blooming, and it's amazing that even when I came out here yesterday afternoon, these buds have really begun to shoot out, even more than they were just 24 hours ago. A sheer sign that, yes, new life has come here to Chicago. And as you look at this is the parking lot behind us. This is the rectory over here. You might say that this is still kind of barren, no? I mean, it's still, from far away, still looks like twigs and branches. But by the middle of May, this is going to be one great big wall of green. And we're going to have men from the parish here come in, and they're going to start actually having to trim this stuff back. Because some of these leaves get so heavy, like on this tree right here behind me, the branches get so heavy with leaves that they're almost touching the ground, the branches are. So it's very important that we do that. Not just that they look good, but there's a thing about trimming branches that's very important. Yes, it's aesthetics, it's for looks, but when a gardener or a landscaper knows what they're doing, and I do not claim to know what I'm doing, they know how to cut here and cut there and cut around. That yes, they trim back on the plants and the bushes and the trees, but when it grows back, it actually grows back much fuller, because there are chemicals within the plant itself that are released when it is trimmed and pruned in the right way. And it's a reminder to me of the reading that we're going to hear from John's Gospel on Sunday that I would like to share with you, from the 15th chapter of John's Gospel, where Jesus tells his disciples and his apostles that he is the vine and they are the branches, and they need to stay close to him if they're going to truly, fully grow. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me and my word remains in you, ask for whatever you want and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples." In many ways, this is a very personal reading for me, because it brings me back. It brings me back to another time and to another place. And while there was certainly one line this last Tuesday when we did the Lectio Divina that jumped out at me, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. The other line, probably the more famous line in this reading, I am the vine and you are the branches, is one that I've held very close to my heart for so many years, and really stuck with me through my years of formation, because it was really hearing this gospel reading proclaimed, the fifth Sunday of Easter, 1988, yes, 1988, 30 years ago already, that my life was changed. And my life was changed with the sermon that was preached that day at the Robert Bellarmine Chapel at Xavier University in Cincinnati. Father John LaRocca, S.J., talked about the fact that the Lord prunes. He cuts away like a vine dresser the dead branches and dead leaves that are stifling us and that are keeping us from truly following the path in life that He's asking us to follow. And that He even asks us to cut away the things that are good. Things that are good but may not necessarily be good for us, and that are still forming hindrances in our lives. That moment when I was sitting there and I heard those words, it's like St. Paul with the scales falling off his eyes. At that point in my life, I was a college student, but I really was very confused. And I knew the Lord was calling me somewhere. I had been struggling for many years with the idea of a priestly vocation, but I never quite had the courage to follow. And I found myself really just uncertain and confused, and these words really spurred me on to apply to the seminary, to go home to New York, to talk to my pastor back home, and to apply to the seminary. And it's a journey that eventually led me back, if you will, to Don Bosco and to the Salesians. I'd gone to Salesian High School and been to Echo Bay Day Camp in New Rochelle with the Salesians when I was younger. And it's a journey that in a way brought me full circle to discover not just the call to the priesthood, but also the call to the religious life. Okay, so two vocations for the price of one. But there's a lot of pruning that needed to happen. There was a lot of tearing away of the dead things in my life that were hindrances. But it also meant a tearing away and a cutting away of even things that were good, but not good for me. Without a doubt, my single biggest struggle in terms of following the call that the Lord had for me was the issue of giving up marriage and family. At that time, even then, I had 6, I guess, nieces and nephews running around. My 3 older brothers were all married. And, I looked at that and I saw, wow, that's what I want. I want to do that. And that voice, that quiet voice that the Lord was speaking to me with, I more and more tried to put aside. And I tried to ignore. And I tried to fight against. Okay, because I thought I knew what I wanted and what was going to make me happy. And in the end, I finally just had to surrender and allow the Lord to cut away those dead things. Yes, to cut away sin, but also to allow the Lord to cut away the things that in and of themselves are good, but maybe weren't good for me. And yes, I could say that all these years later, I don't regret it. I am thankful that the Lord called me and that the Lord did that pruning, did that cutting away of what we call, again, the dead things in my life. And even allowing Him to cut away those things that, again, in and of themselves were good, but not good for me. I think sometimes what's difficult is that we want it all. And I think what holds back some men and women from following a call either to the priesthood or to the religious life as a brother or a sister or some other vocation in the Lord like that, to the consecrated life, is that we have to say no. We have to say no to marriage. We have to say no to family life in the traditional way that we think about it. But also there's so many that do not accept the call to marriage because it means saying yes to one person and saying no to everyone else. In marriage, it means no longer living for yourself, but living for your wife or your husband, and then later living for your wife or your husband and your children. You are no longer the center of your own life, but your center in a way shifts, and you have to learn to live selflessly. Just as a priest also needs to learn to live selflessly, to give of himself, not for what he wants, but for what the Lord wants and the needs of the people that he is sent to. And it's been a wonderful life. it's been beyond telling. I know that as wonderful as being married would have been, as fulfilling as being a father would have been, I never would have gone to Mexico probably to study for 3 years. I probably never would have taken the trips to Ecuador in order to also do studies periodically. I never would have, gone to California, then gone back to Jersey, and then gone to Ohio, and then gone to New York, and done all this crisscrossing of the nation if I had that preoccupation in my head of how's this going to impact my wife? How's this going to impact our children? I would have had those preoccupations. But the Lord, in a way, has freed me. Has it always been easy? Of course not. Of course not. It's pruning. It's having things cut away. Of course it's going to be painful. But in the end, we bear more fruit. We truly grow fuller and richer in God's grace when we allow Him to do that work of pruning. And so I invite you now to really pray over this reading. Ask the Lord, what are the things in my life I need to prune away? Certainly, what are the sins and vices? But also, what are even the good things that may be good, but may not be good for me? Okay. Very, very important point. Please continue to pray for me, continue to pray for the other Salesians here in the house, and know that I am praying for you today and every day.